If you're in your 20s and you're feeling lost, anxious, unsure about the direction you're headed in life, and just frequently overwhelmed about everything, don't worry, I'm right there with you. Truly, it's no wonder that we feel this way. Our 20s are a time of major upheavals, both socially and economically. That's when you leave university, enter the workforce, start living away from your parents, and when you start carving a life for yourself. My 20s have been an emotional roller coaster, to say the least. I've dealt anxiety with pretty much every aspect of my life multiple times over. From my finances, to my relationships, to my goals in life, how well I was doing compared to my peers, and everything else in between. I remember telling a friend that I was just perpetually in this state of discomfort. It was at that point where I realized something needed to change, because the one constant in life is change. And with change comes uncertainty and anxiety. And if change was going to be constant, then was I just going to feel anxious for the rest of my life? I knew there had to be some way to overcome this. From listening to podcasts, watching self-help experts on YouTube, going to therapy, reading loads of books, and having meaningful heart-to-hearts with friends who were going through the same thing, I accumulated a lot of insights into how to deal with my anxiety around all of these things. But before we get into it, if you're new here, my name is Tika, and I post videos every Sunday on evidence-based productivity, self-improvement, health, and well-being. Please do subscribe and like and join me on this journey of building a holistically good life for ourselves. Number 1, I stopped comparing myself to other people. When I started working at my first job, I had this tendency to compare myself to other people a lot, especially when it came to life milestones, whether that was financial, romantic, or anything else really. And this applied not only to friends, but also strangers on social media. I would have moments where I'd feel like I was really behind on the timeline of life. And I kept looping unhelpful thoughts in my head, such as, at this stage of my life, I should already be earning a certain amount. I should be thinking about marriage because everyone else is getting married or engaged. I should be in better shape. I should already have my life together. And the list goes on. And this constant comparison was making me desperately unhappy because my brain was catastrophizing my life, and needlessly so. And I kept spiraling over and over again into this deeply unfounded belief that my life was in a mess. I really believed in this idea of there being a timeline for life. And I also believed that there was only really one correct or best template to follow for what your life should look like. And this is because I felt like most people were subscribing to this template. The template sounds roughly like this. Graduate from uni with a good degree, get a job at a fancy company that's gonna pay you the big bucks and give you that LinkedIn clout, fall in love, get engaged, and get married by your mid to late 20s, buy your own home and start a family in your early 30s, get promoted again and again over the decades, keep going up the ranks, jumping from one prestigious company to another, maybe have more kids and buy a car or two in the meantime, retire by 60-something, and the end. Okay, so that was a really oversimplified version, but I think we're all pretty much aware of this template. What I didn't allow myself to believe is that your life does not need to conform to this template in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, it's a very rigid way of looking at things. My anxiety stemmed from the need to contort and force the shape of my life to fit this mold as closely as possible. And when I felt like things weren't headed in that general direction or weren't heading there fast enough, then I would spiral into my anxious thoughts. But interestingly, part of my anxiety also stemmed from not really knowing whether that was what I actually wanted in life. What I wished I realized sooner was that I wasn't exactly happy pursuing any of these things, but I kept doing it anyway, thinking that of course I should want these things. It's what everyone else wants and what everyone else is working towards. But here's the thing, there is no timeline. There is no template. There is no one way in which you need to live your life. As a whole, I feel like us as human beings are extremely unimaginative with what we imagine a good life to be. So much so that we become passive. We blindly follow the masses without even stopping for a second to think, is this what I really want? It's perfectly okay to not want the same things as other people, even if it feels like literally everyone around you wants those things. So I stopped comparing myself to other people and what their desires in life were. I stopped using other people's lives as a benchmark for how well I was doing in my own. Once I stopped caring about what other people were doing, it released this weight off my shoulders. I felt really free to look into myself and really try to understand what it was that I wanted out of my own life. I also realized that the only person that you really should be comparing yourself to or trying to be better than is yourself, the past version of you, not other people, because that is the definition of self-growth. On the other hand, comparing to others is self-sabotage. Have realistic expectations of love and relationships. Throughout my dating experiences and relationships in the past, I would have moments where I would question the quality of that connection. I would wonder to myself, are we in love as other people seem to be? Or is our dynamic what it's supposed to be? Should I be doing this for my partner and should they be doing that for me? Should we be texting more or less, or doing this more or doing that less? It's those rigid expectations of what a relationship should look and feel like in order for it to be a good relationship. And I feel like this is a really common thing with people and how we view relationships. It's no wonder really, because our whole lives we've been fed this very specific depiction of love and romance from movies, TV shows, and social media. And when our relationships don't match up to that specific depiction or that specific image, then that can be a real cause of anxiety. Even when it's good, and even when you're happy most of the time, it can cause you to doubt the quality of your relationship. What has helped me a lot is realizing that there's no one particular way in which your relationship needs to look and feel like. There's this really beautiful quote from the book Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, which perfectly summarizes this point. There are as many kinds of love as there are hearts. There is not one single love that's better than the other. There is only the love that you have right in front of you, right in this very moment. And you can choose to suffer by comparing your relationship with the mere assumption of what you think other people's relationships are like. Or you can focus on building a relationship that you love. You get to decide what makes it fulfilling. That's something that you and your partner get to explore together, irrespective of other people. And that's really exciting. Another thing to remember is that what you see on your friends' stories or their social media is their highlight reel, the top 1% moments of their relationship, the best and happiest moments with their partner, not the 99% of the time where things are just neutral or normal. No one is going to be posting about the fight that they had with their partner that week, or that they were on the brink of a breakup just the other day, or that they are secretly disappointed with their partner. So stop comparing the worst parts of your relationship with the best parts of other people's. I stopped putting too much on my plate. For the vast majority of my life, I had always pressured myself to be hyperproductive, to have all cylinders of my life firing at 100% all the time. I wasn't being mindful of, nor did I respect the limited energy and bandwidth that I had. I was cramming all this stuff into my day, and it would make me really anxious because my to-do lists were so long and I just felt really pressured to tick everything off. I was overcommitting to social events that I really did not have the capacity for emotionally or mentally, purely out of obligation. And as an introvert, that really drained me. What helped was identifying what my core pillars in life were and spending the majority of my time and energy in those areas. Because if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. I stopped pressuring myself from needing to do everything and from needing to meet with everyone and go everywhere. So just as an example, my core pillars in life happen to be my creative pursuits, which is my YouTube, my relationships with those closest to me, and also my health and well-being. These are the areas of my life that I want to show up in the most and really bring the best of myself to. Once I told myself that I only had these 3 things to concern myself with, then life just became so much more manageable. I felt like I only had 3 tick boxes instead of a million. I slow down my mornings. During university, I developed this really bad habit of waking up at the latest possible time that I could and rushing to get to my classes just so I could get those few extra minutes in the morning for sleep. When really I should have just made it a habit to sleep earlier and get more rest that way. But anyway, when I started working my first job, this habit stayed on with me. It didn't help that it was during the pandemic and everything was work from home and virtual. There really wasn't a need to look presentable. No joke, I would wake up 10 minutes before my first meeting for the day and I would just quickly brush my teeth, wash my face, and then just jump onto the computer, PJs and all. I wouldn't even have breakfast until after the meeting. So that was how I got into this really bad habit of rushing in the mornings. Now you might be wondering, how does this exactly relate to anxiety? The problem with rushing is that it makes us feel as though life is going at this crazy pace when it's not. You've just created that pace in your head. And this is really important because how you start your day really sets the tone for the rest of your day. Rushing in the morning sets the tone that the rest of the day is going to be really frantic and stressful. That's what you're telling your body, so it's going to feel tense and it's not going to feel good. And this feeling will stay with you even after you've arrived at work or arrived worked at school. I've made it a point to wake up earlier just so I can have a more intentional and more relaxed morning. I went from having a 10-minute morning routine to a 45-minute morning routine. When I have the luxury to just relish in my skincare routine and take the time to have breakfast without feeling super rushed, it just makes me so much happier. And here's one bonus tip that really helped me to reduce anxiety in the mornings. Try not to look at your phone for the first hour of the day. In fact, what I do is that I would leave my phone in another room whilst I go and do my skincare and have my breakfast. And whilst I'm eating, I'm just sitting there silently with my thoughts for 10 minutes. Or I take that time to journal or maybe do a bit of reading. The reason why is because I know that checking my notifications is immediately going to make me feel stressed because it's going to trigger thoughts about work and social obligations and everything else that I need to do for the day. And ideally, we don't want to be feeling that pressure or stress first thing in the morning. I stopped drinking caffeine. Alright, so you can't exactly get anxiety directly from drinking caffeine. However, the side effects that you get from caffeine are really similar to that of anxiety. And if you do have anxiety, then it's been proven that it actually makes your symptoms worse. The research shows that in people with panic disorders, caffeine consumption actually raises the risk of having a panic attack and increases levels of anxiety. And another thing is coffee really screws up your sleep quality. There's been studies done where even consuming caffeine up to 6 hours before your bedtime can reduce your sleep by 1 hour. Caffeine blocks the sleep promoting receptors in your brain, which not only makes it more difficult for you to fall asleep, but it also makes your sleep feel overall less satisfying. I've stopped drinking caffeine for the most part for the past 2 months, and it's completely changed my life. I don't really get the energy spikes and crashes like I used to. My nervous system doesn't feel as activated, and I generally just feel so much more in control of my emotions. When I do feel anxious, the intensity of it is so much less than what it used to be. My brother-in-law once said, if you need to rely on a substance or a chemical in order to allow you to function like a normal human being, then there's seriously something wrong with you. And that just stuck with me. Because it's true, we shouldn't need to rely on a substance or a chemical just to get through the day. And if you do, then there's a much deeper issue that needs to be resolved. With caffeine, the most likely culprits would be lack of sleep discipline, stress from work, or just poor work-life balance. So these are all the things that I did in order to help cope with anxiety in my 20s. If you found these insights helpful in any way, don't forget to subscribe and do give this video a thumbs up. It goes a long way in supporting this channel. Take care and see you in the next video.